Why is art important to me? Art should be important to everybody. It probably starts with me because in the process of creating, you create for yourself first, but it is as relevant to everybody else as it should be. Art is a way of life. Art is in everything we do. The food we eat is by placement in design, the clothes we wear, the fashion that they come with, the artifacts from our forefathers as utensils. They were crafted and made, the tools they used to make this and that were all artistic in the sense of artifacts. So art is important to me because it can be a business, it can be a tool for change, it can be a lot of things. My work is rather not as defined like any other process of creating. It's almost spiritual. It's not a way you sit down and say I concoct things, I move this and that. It is a sense of meditational. It is rather therapeutic. It is a bit of madness and bliss at the same time, if I go metaphysical in a few words. But art, in its sense, is an infinite process. It's a way of. That's another way of saying it is a search and find. It is an experimentation. It is an experience. You don't sit down and say, I've stretched the canvas, I have made a format to make a digital piece. It's going to be gold. At the LéO Africa review discussion, we talked about art as many things, but the main reason we were there was to talk about art as a tool for social justice. That is as important as it is for people to understand how they are, what their rights are, what their way of life should be like, responsibility from leaders and accountability, the things that people owe to experience in their rightful condition. We talked about art as a tool for social justice, which I think is mandatory in many ways. So this is my future for Africa, the Africa we want, we as Africans, not the one that has been designed for us. It's one of my memorable pieces. I made it in 2015. It's a piece I worked on for about 2 to 3 years. And to take you through it briefly, it's an utopia, a futuristic fantasy of a sort, a dream that Martin Luther King talked about. So if I had a dream, it would be of a dream, of a young child almost about to wake, because Africa is changing. We are on a rise. Africa is almost like a child who is in deep sleep, experiencing a dream, but about to wake up with ideas that are ours and inbred, that need to be protected. This is my future for Africa. I hope many years, 50 to 100, even when I am long gone, this piece still rises up with the intention that I had when I was making it, in its full relevance.
Kwizera, would you say, from your own example, that to be an artist is to be misunderstood, and therefore art in itself is rebellion, by another name?
It sure is, because all through my childhood growing up, I was a rebel.
And you mentioned this quite well in the interview on LéoAfricaReview.com.
Yeah. So, first of all, an art piece is something very, very, I wouldn't know what word to put it, but to make it simple, I mentioned it to Kanje here in an interesting conversation. An art piece has 3 voices, if you ask me. You see, this is a piece right here. It has a message that Easy has intended to pass on. That is one. It has another message when you find it, standing alone as it is. And the third one, it has the message that you, the audience, can choose to derive from it. Now, if you don't find rebellion in the discussion on what a piece or what an artist is, then I don't know where else you would find such confusion. Yeah.
You have this art piece, I wish we could project it somehow, of President Museveni wearing military fatigue, a young President Museveni wearing military fatigue, looking at the mirror, and guess who's looking at him? Bobby Wine holding up his hand. And you shared it on Instagram with the following caption: Bobby is the Museveni of before 86, you see. Only this time the revolution is out on the streets and the weapon is the microphone. Where'd you get the gut?
Like you branded me a rebel at the start. I'm a rebel with my brush. It's another form of he's a rebel in the postmodern world with the vector drawings. Bobby Wine is a rebel in the streets today with his microphone and his guitar, as Museveni was and before 86 with his guns and guerrilla warfare. What might intimidate, if you ask me, what might intimidate or challenge His Excellency Museveni right now is seeing a young man of the age that he was at the same time, fighting for people whose grievances are unheard, the oppression, which was the same, which was equally the same struggle and reason and motivation of the years before, but now only in different times. It must make him feel like what's the word? It must nostalgically throw him back to this man could stand for something. Now him looking through a reflection and seeing, a mirror can scare you sometimes if you are not careful. He wants to see himself. He would wish he would see himself 2021 and more. But this time he sees a young man who stands for what he stood for in the years that were before. Only this time he's in different days. He has different weapons.
Worldview and all.
Absolutely.
So what was the inspiration behind that? Or was it just in the moment?
Well, the inspiration behind a piece like that, first of all, we stand for... let me tell you a small story growing up. I like my stories growing up. I was a little small boy, you know. I wasn't even as tall. I was short. We had small groups of little kids, very troublesome, but no energy if you asked for it. We couldn't fight for a second. But we were tortured throughout the day. I don't know what primary schools you went to. We went to schools where we had young... those were old men. Those were old men with beards and chest hair. Those are the guys we studied with in class. So they bullied us all through the day. So eventually I realized I had something for myself. When I had the pencil, it could have been... It might have been a vengeful way of getting back at these bullies. But that's besides the point. I found I had a weapon to use by drawing small cartoons on the chalkboard of these bullies in their failed ways to hit on girls. We called it a 9, a total fail. So I made fun of them like that. Of course, that evening they beat us all. 10 small little kids come beat. But eventually they paid a little respect. So and growing up, I got to work for a paper. I found out that I had not only a gift to beautify things, make artworks that hang on the wall for pleasure, but stand for something more than just myself. So I fought for a bunch of small little kids whose rights were unheard. And they started being respected because they said that little one there will cause us trouble, you know? Which is the same thing right now. It's too much motivation for me to look on what Bobby Wine stands for. I don't know if his people power is a concept that he believes in not only a symbol of representation, but the concept of power being given to the people. If that is not motivation, I don't know what is.